Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Chatty Cathy's. Today I will be reviewing The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 13, Episode 3. But before I do that, why don't you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to this channel? I would greatly appreciate it. And now that you've done that, let's get into it. The, the title of this episode is 10, 10, 20, which lets you know that it has a lot to do with Cynthia and Mike, right? However, they open up on Portia, and she is in Kentucky marching for or against police brutality and for Black Lives Matter. And right now they're focusing, at that time, they were focusing on the murder of Breonna Taylor by a police officer. They opened up and told us that it was 165 days since her murder and nothing had yet been done. It is so unfortunate that we know that the outcome was dismal at best, and no one was charged even with shooting Breonna Taylor, and certainly not without her murder. So they give us some flashbacks of Hosea Williams during the civil rights marches, and there was a picture of Portia with her grandfather, and it was cute because Portia and Pilar really little Portia and little Pilar really look a lot alike. When she was first born, I remember people saying that she looked like her father, Pilar, and Portia thought it was an insult, which is really, really interesting to say the best. But that little girl looks like her mother when she was little. So, not that it looks so important because I absolutely do not think that they are. So, Portia was arrested again. And she did talk a little bit about the fact that it wasn't as blinding to her because she had been through it before. So, that first time was the one that kind of knocked your socks off, so to speak. Okay, so then we move on to Kenya, who looks a little better than she did the week prior. She received a video call from Brandon, and um, that was a very short scene. Then we move on to Margot helping or talking to Riley about preparing for NYU and getting it all together to go to college, which is odd at best. Didn't know that they had a relationship, and that's the only reason that it was odd to me. Then we move on to Cynthia, who is telling Mel that what her wedding colors are. And she said that the guests will wear black and the wedding party will wear white, but she and Mike will not wear white. And then she said that the colors are black, white, gold, and silver. So I left with the understanding that she and Mike will be wearing the gold and the silver. Um, then we get on to Drew, and she's cooking breakfast with one of her children, and her older child calls her on her cell phone from another room. And I really know what that's like because my son used to call me all the time from another room. And no, it was not a mansion. It's just like I don't feel like getting up and going in there. She told the kid that, they were making breakfast and perhaps he could come in there and help as well. But by the time he got in there, she was taking off this breakfast. Now, it was a pancake breakfast. And I already know that people, different families cook things differently. We may have the same main food, like for instance, collard greens, but everybody has a different way of cooking them. And I said all that to say that these were the thickest and the whitest pancakes I've ever seen in my life. Um, but there were a lot of them, and she put them on the children's plate. I guess that was turkey bacon because that's kind of what it looked like. So they went ahead and they started to have breakfast. Now, one thing I did note is that she had corrected one of the children, and then her husband came and overrode her, and you could tell that she didn't like it, and she said, "Who's the parent?" And then he kind of justified, and let the child do what he wanted to do, which kind of is not a good look for him because that is going to backfire on him going forward. Um, so then they are with her mother in, I guess, her bedroom or whatever the case may be, and she's rehearsing for her sermon. And they're kind of there, and she says that the sermon is entitled "Bridle Your Tongue." And when she said that, she looked at Ralph, and he said, "Why are you looking at me?" And then she goes on to tell him that she heard them arguing. Um, So he tries to put her in her place, right? And says that this is between Drew and I, and it really is not, between you and us. But the mother was not um, really taken to the redirection. But the real problem was that Drew stepped in and sided with her mother against her husband. And that's the kind of thing that's going to get her in trouble in her marriage, in my opinion. Um, so she thought that her husband was being disrespectful to her mother by telling her, that, the marriage or whatever goes on in the marriage is between he and Drew and not the mother. But Drew sided with her mother. If she would have done better if she hadn't sided with anybody, but to side with her mother against her husband is not cool. So then we go on to Portia, and she's saying that quarantine is like a honeymoon. It started out like a honeymoon, and now she and Dennis aren't together anymore. So she's now focusing on her activism, her job, and her daughter. And the relationship is there's no place for it right now. So she's not even really thinking about it. She's just going about, getting those three parts of her life taken care of. So then we move on to Kenya. And she answers a call from Latoya, who is in her driveway. So she goes down and she lets her in, and Latoya is doing this little, dance, and they have this kind of energetic greeting at the door, and then they go head upstairs and they're going to be drinking some shots of tequila. Um, and it looks like it's late outside. That's all I can really say about that, but whatever. So then Latoya is talking, and she says that she wants to put both of them on a dating site. She wants to take some pictures and put them on a dating site. And at one point, Kenya says, "Well, I want to, let them know that I'm married, so I'm gonna, make sure my wedding ring is on." And she said, "Don't worry about it because I'm gonna edit that out anyway." So Latoya is um, she is encouraging Kenya to end her marriage and just move on because her marriage is not making her happy. I think that this is just my opinion, so it is what it is. But I think that people leave marriages too soon, and then I think that other people encourage people to leave marriages too soon. So sometimes it's not even that the person has asked the other person for their opinion, but they just want to know. For instance, the other day I was looking at the finale of The Real Housewives of Potomac, and the women were asking Ashley, what is she going to do if Michael cheats on her again? And you could tell by the way they asked the question that the only thing that would satisfy is if she said she was going to divorce him. Now, she doesn't owe those women, or anybody else for that matter, an answer about what she's going to do in her marriage if her husband cheats. That's between Ashley and Michael. But people kind of inserted themselves into someone else's marriage, and that's not cool, not even slightly cool. So, okay, I need my glasses again. Give me a second. I don't like wearing them. However, I do need to see. So, they had a haha moment. They did a little kiki about, so Kenya was meeting with Cynthia the previous week, and she was telling her that Latoya was talking about Drew's hair, and she called it a cat. And initially, Cynthia thought that she had a pet cat, but in fact, she was talking about her wig, and that it's not a good wig and it doesn't look good and things of that nature. And they both declared themselves not wig people. And then Kenya said, "Well, yeah, I mean, if you're in LA where they have the best hairdressers in the world, why can't you get a better wig?" And I have to say, I understand people who are on, not, I don't even understand people on my level. I understand people on a lower socioeconomic level who want to get a wig and maybe go to the hair supply store or something like that. And they get this wig, and the wig is not really realistic looking, but it covers up their hair and helps them to protect it or whatever they're trying to do. And I get that because you pay for what you can afford, but these people are supposed to be very well off financially. And if that is the case, if we are to believe that some of these people, not just Drew, but some of the other reality TV people have more money, have more resources, then they should have better wigs, right? And better weaves too, because sometimes when you look at it in 4K or whatever, and you can look up, you can actually see, let me see, you see how you can see my scalp? Well, there has been times when I could see, say this is my hair, and then this is the weave hair, and you can see how they've intertwined it or whatever. You can see a clip there, you can see whatever the case may be. You can see that there's one hair, one type of hair that is coming together with another type. And if I could see that on television, certainly people can see that in person, right? And you should dress, I am a proponent for the idea of dressing for yourself, right? You should not be trying to make other people happy by your appearance. That being said, if you're wearing a wig, I imagine the premise is that my natural hair, for some reason, will not do today. I'm going to put on a covering, right? And people will never know. And there are absolutely people that I know who you would never think have on a wig, or you would never think they have a, a um a weave. Like you would never think it because they've taken time and to get it together. And that's all they were saying about Drew. So they were just talking, and then we go to a scene where there is Cynthia, Kenya, and Candy, and they're exercising at Candy's house. And they have two trainers there to help them, and they're doing like a lot of things. They're not actually exercising together, but some people are on the ball, some people on the rope. I mean working out their arms on the rope, and then I forget what the other person's doing, but they're kind of rotating and getting. And then when they're tired, they went out of the area that they were exercising. It looked like a basketball court, and then they went out and sat down and had some fruit and talked. And what they talked about was well, the fact that they all had gained COVID weight. Like, I think Cynthia gained almost 30 pounds. Kenya gained around 30 pounds. I don't know how much Candy gained. I don't know that she said it, or did I just not pay attention to it? And both of those things are possible. So they also started discussing Cynthia's wedding, which I understand. The only person I know who's been married and did not focus on it all day long is my girlfriend. Um, I was her maid of honor. I was super happy about it. I was thinking about it when I was in school because I think I was 16 when she got married, right? So I may possibly have thought about it more than she did. She didn't talk about it a lot. She was very cool. But Cynthia is doing what the traditional bride does. She's talking about it all the time. And Cynthia is simply not grasping the seriousness of COVID-19 virus. Now, because while they're exercising, nobody has on a mask. But I noticed the trainers, when they leave, when they were leaving, put their mask on. Well, you've been sitting up here with these people, working with them. Nobody's staying 6 feet apart. Nobody has on a mask. Like, they're really not paying attention to what is going on, not just in our country, but in the world, right? So they need to. This is my pet peeve. I mean, that's kind of why a lot of the housewives and a lot of reality stars and a lot of celebrities at best have been diagnosed with COVID, because they're not taking it as seriously as they need to. And I understand that they need to go to work. Guess what, though? We all do. We all need to work. You know why? Because we all need to eat. And so them not being willing to isolate, it just blows my mind. It just, I don't understand it. Within these 2 episodes, the last 2 episodes, they had so many get-togethers. I just can't. I don't get these people, but whatever. So Cynthia wants 250 people during the pandemic, um, and she will not be swayed from her dream wedding. She will not be swayed by her sister, who is taking Mike's side, because Mike is saying, regardless, if COVID is still here, then let's just get married and you can have the party later and have all of our friends and family, to attend that. But if we said that the perfect date is 10-10-20, then we should get married come what may. But Cynthia wants this big, elaborate wedding, and she can't see her way out of that. And I just didn't know she was so. Never mind, I'm not going to call her a name. So, anyway, Candy and Kenya strongly suggest to her that they get a prenup, not wait until the last minute, because that's what Candy did. And she almost didn't get married. And by the way, Candy was wrong about that. She didn't want her husband to get anything. But when men make the most money and they marry women, they get some. The women get something when they get divorced. So Candy's being super selfish about that. Um, I think that Todd actually works harder than she does, at least what we see on the screen. So okay, when they were talking to Cynthia about a prenup, production reminded us of the the mess that was Candy asking Todd for a prenup. And she did not do it right. She told Cynthia she didn't do it right and tried to encourage her to do it right. So then we move on to Portia and Lauren. They pick up Tanya, and Portia tells them all about Fallon. And they go ahead and go to Fallon's house, and it's almost like they walked straight through, went out to the backyard where the pool was, and they sat down. They were noshing. They met, first of all, they met her husband, Simon. They noshed, and then they smoked hookah. And I can't believe I wrote that. They frolicked. That's what I wrote. They frolicked and threw each other into the pool before Fallon and Simon, who, by the way, was kind of in the dark, kind of cutting in the back, watching the women frolic. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then, Fallon asked him to turn on the hot tub. They got into the hot tub and started to discuss police brutality in the black community. Portia says that regardless of how we feel, because we've been fighting for so long, and for the most of us, we've been begging people to treat us as equal, as full human beings, and as equal human beings, which does not seem like you would have to ask someone, but people have been asking for a very long time. So Portia came in and said that we are not helpless. We are we are psychologically dealing with trauma, And that's actually like super on point. I have another channel on YouTube, um, Kathy Brooks, We Will Survive, and where I talk about all of the trauma that has been suffered by the Black community. And she's right there because on one of the episodes we talked about learned helplessness and how a lot of us have fallen to it. And basically just trying to figure out where we are as human beings, where we are as a community, and how we can get from where we are to where we need to be. And that is what that vlog is about. So then wait a minute, let me back up. So I guess it was a maid, a housekeeper, somebody brought out some boxes for each person. And I don't know what was in them because they didn't really talk about it. And then they just switched to another scene. So Drew, she had all of these boxes either packed or boxes to be packed in her living area. And she's so happy about the aspect of moving, into this house. However, Ralph explains to her all that is actually involved in purchasing a house, and Drew simply signed a bill of sale, not a bill of sale, but signed the other person's bill of sale. But Ralph tells her that that's not it. Like that house is not really ours yet until we get it inspected. We have to do this. We have to do that. And Drew wanted in on the process. Like she didn't want to just understand the process. She wanted to experience the process. And he said, well, there are things that you do, and then there are things that I do. And you pick it out, like you like it and everything like that. So then I have to do the money part. And when they get back into the car, um, Ralph agrees to go to counseling, marriage counseling. Good idea. I was going to say it's 2020. This is 2021, right? So women just don't so much subscribe to the traditional role for women. And what that means is women want to know what's going on. Women don't want to be kept or protected from the wiles of the world. Like we don't want to be protected. I've seen people who were so protected from things like paying bills and stuff like that to when their husband passed away, they didn't know how to pay bills. That's a very important thing, but you don't know it if somebody is protecting you. Eh, it's just a it's just what it is. So then we see Cynthia and Mike at the wedding venue, and then Mel meets them there. They do not agree on the size or the place for the event. So, oh yes, I couldn't understand my hair right in there for a second. Cynthia wants an aerialist to be up on the thing and doing acrobatics and things of that nature as the guests come into the wedding. So she's like being grand. Mike asked about the event planner that was there, asked her about COVID restrictions, and Cynthia was so bent out of shape over it that she just said, we'll worry about that at the time and things like that. So Mike appears to be a realist because now that we are past 10-10-20, we know that COVID is not over, right? We have not combated it. And it was not the brightest thing for Cynthia to have 250 people at her wedding, some of whom did mask up and then some who didn't. And how do I know that? Well, you know that I was not invited. I know it because there were pictures there and there were people who were masked and some who were not. They were very close. They were dancing. They were doing things like you do at a wedding, with the exception of this is a pandemic still. So Cynthia argued with Mike. He asked her if COVID is still around, is a thing of the present at 10-10-20. Do you still want to marry me? And she said, and I quote, I don't know. Now, where I might, my heart would be broken, right? Because you're basically saying you really are into it for this party, right? But you're not really into it for the marriage. You know what I mean? She's really more into having this big elaborate party. Um, she walked away from him, which all these little people always talk about men being the ones who don't do the right thing and all of that. Um, but in real life, that was, I'm sorry, that was Cynthia who was not doing the right thing. So, okay. So that was Cynthia who's not thinking and who's not considering what Mike has to say. She keeps saying, I want this. I deserve this, but at the same time, it's not her wedding; it is their wedding, and she's being crazy. So that's my opinion of that. And we have come to the end of episode. What is it? 13.